Helen Mirren isn't just the refined British icon we see on red carpets. Behind the elegance lies a woman who shocked Hollywood for decades with her fearless choices, from daring roles to trials of lovers and a marriage that broke every rule in the industry. She sparked scandals, stunned fans with her honesty about sex, and never once backed down. What fueled her unapologetic life? And how did it shape the legend she became? This is the untold story of Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren was born into a modest working-class family in London, but was never meant for an ordinary life. While her parents pushed her toward a safe, respectable career in teaching, Helen had only one thing on her mind: fame. And when the wild spirit of the 1960s rolled in, she didn't just rebel, she sprinted straight into the spotlight. At just 19, she walked away from her family's expectations and joined the Royal Shakespeare Company, quickly becoming one of its most magnetic stars. On stage, she wore daring, plunging costumes that showed off her hourglass figure and left little to the imagination, making headlines as much for her body as for her talent. Offstage, she lived just as freely. While most actresses tried to look sweet and pure for the cameras, Helen didn't bother with the act. She didn't hide her lovers or pretend to be innocent. She talked openly about sex, and to her, if people whispered about her wild ways, it meant they were paying attention, and that was precisely what she wanted. Critics were split. Some called her too bold, too provocative. Others were hooked. But Helen didn't care. She was in control, untamed and unapologetic, and the world couldn't take its eyes off her. By the 1970s, producers were hooked on her wild energy and raw passion. They wanted that fire captured on film, not just on stage. So Helen made a bold leap from theater to the big screen, and nearly every role she took came with heavy nudity and steamy scenes. It shocked audiences who didn't know her stage past, but to those familiar with her fearless style, it was just Helen being Helen. In the infamous interview with Michael Parkinson in 1974, she was named the Sex Queen of Stratford and described as especially telling in sluttish eroticism. To Helen, the title felt like a compliment. However, her best was yet to come, and when people watched her star as Caesonia in Caligula, they were stunned. This 1979 erotic historical movie was probably the apex of nudity and sex scenes. Helen herself described her role in the movie as an irresistible mix of art and genitals. The movie was an international box office hit, grossing about $23 million. But this did not stop the negative reviews from pouring in and Mirren's image from coming under fire for the excessive exploration of sex. If people thought Caligula was Helen at her wildest, they had no idea what was coming. Nearly 10 years later, she repeatedly stunned audiences in The Cook, The Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. This time, Helen played Georgina, the wife of a violent gangster. The film was raw, brutal, and unapologetically graphic, full of nudity, intense sex scenes, and moments that made people squirm. Watching Helen take it all on felt fearless, but inside, she was terrified. In a brutally honest interview with the New York Times, she admitted her first nude scene nearly broke her. "I just wanted to die," she confessed. "I wanted the earth to open and swallow me up." It wasn't easy, but she did it anyway, and somehow it became just another part of the job. Then came the outrage. Some fans were furious. They accused directors of using Helen's body to sell movies, turning her into eye candy just to make money. Others said those shocking roles were just a trick to distract from her real talent as an actress. But Helen didn't play the victim. Instead, she flipped the whole narrative. In later interviews, she said nudity didn't bother her and that she wasn't being forced into anything. If anything, she was in charge. To her, it wasn't about shame or modesty. It was about being comfortable in her skin and controlling her image. She chose those roles. While she agreed that the movie industry could push women into sexualized roles, she felt she had reclaimed the power for herself. She wasn't doing anything she did not want to do, and that was good enough for her. There's no doubt that throughout Helen's career she has had tons of lovers, which she agrees to, but only a few were publicly recognized. The first was the British photographer and fashion designer James Wedge, whom she met when she posed for his cover photo for the July 11, 1971 edition of the Observer magazine titled "Shakespearean Star Helen Mirren Shows How to Dress with Drama." Some of his erotic portraits of her appeared in her 2008 autobiography. In the Frame, My Life in Words and Pictures. They lived together for 4 years before they separated. Then, while working on Excalibur 6 years later, Mirren met the Northern Irish actor Liam Neeson. He was immediately smitten with her, especially when he saw her in her costume as Morgana Le Fay, a black net dress that flaunted her ample figure. Romance blossomed between the two, and they started living together as a couple. Their relationship did not last, as they grew apart 4 years later. Liam later confessed that he felt intimidated by Helen's success while he was still struggling, though she had assisted him in getting an agent, which had helped advance his acting career. However, while their romantic involvement ended, they remained good friends decades later. Then, in 1997, Helen Mirren did the unexpected. It was the year she turned 52 and seemed to finally settle into a life of solitude and independence. She married Taylor Hackford, a Hollywood director, in Scotland on New Year's Eve. The two had gotten acquainted on the set of the film White Nights in 1985. They continued seeing each other afterwards and officially started dating a year later. The news shocked most of her fans, as she always said that marriage was unnecessary for her to be happy. It was her first marriage, but Taylor's third, with 2 children. However, Helen caving into marriage did not mean she left her independence behind. She carried it with her into the new relationship. Their marriage was described as one that was balanced, and they gave each other space. They did not need to be together constantly, and Helen believed that this was why their relationship had thrived for so long. Her marriage wasn't a departure from her earlier life. Instead, she chose another chapter, not because of pressure or expectation, but out of love. In 2004, British Naturism named Helen Mirren Naturist of the Year. She confessed she loves to be naked and believes that acting is more about taking off disguises rather than putting them on. She called herself a naturist at heart. She loves being on a nude beach where everyone is naked, whatever. She finds it unisexual and liberating. She also condemns the way the British audience reacts to nudity, describing it as hypocritical and uptight. She said she always hated it whenever she had to strip for the camera. In her own words, "It is horrible. I do it because it's part of my job and because I know it titillates and gets bums on seats. I'm not beautiful naked, and when there are 150 clothed people staring at me in a studio, I feel very self-conscious. It's a form of torture." During another interview in 2008, Mirren gave the world another glimpse into her scandal-filled life. She confessed to being dated a couple of times when she was younger. She had had a sheltered upbringing in a convent school and could not develop the courage to stand up to men. She described the experiences as being invasive. She was locked up in a room and forced to have sex against her will. The Oscar-winning actress also admitted date experiences led her to regularly snorting cocaine in the 1960s in her youth until her late 30s. When she eventually stopped, it was because of the capture of Klaus Barbie, the notorious Nazi war criminal. Barbie was reported to have been making money from the Class A drugs when caught. Helen said reading about how her little sniff of cocaine has an absolute direct link to the horrible man made her give it up. She also said she hated marijuana and once tried the hallucinogenic drug LSD, but found it a horrifying experience. In 2015, when she marked her 70th birthday, Helen declared she was done with on-screen nudity. In a conversation with Alan Cumming for CBS, the actor confirmed again that she never particularly wanted to undress fully for the camera. Still, she emerged as an actress when the practice was in vogue and had to blend in. Now that she is getting older, she said her pleasure pillows are purely for her husband. At 79, she pronounced that her sex life is great, just wonderful. She is focused on having fun and growing old with her husband, stepping up from her youth's paranoid and empty encounters. She is still featured in epic movies, as it seems her fans can't have enough of her appearances. Her recent movies include the 2023 Fast X, Whitebird, released in 2024, and she is on the set of the upcoming The Thursday Murder Club. If you enjoyed this video, there's a good chance you'll enjoy the one on your screen right now. Click, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you at the next one.